All right, we're going to call to order the work session for the Cochise County Board of Supervisors. Today is Monday, April 7th. We are meeting in the Board of Supervisors hearing room. Pursuant to ARS 38431.02H, the public will have physical access to the meeting room 15 minutes prior to the start of the meeting. Any item on this agenda is open for discussion. Members of the board are either going to attend in person or by internet. Members of the public may also attend this meeting via Microsoft Teams or the mobile app. Work sessions are a time for your county staff to inform and discuss agenda items with the Board of Supervisors, and public comments will not be taken. We'll begin with a roll call. District 1.
Crosby is here.
District 2.
Gomez is here.
District 3. Antonori is here. All supervisors are present and in person. All right, we will begin with, I guess, the first item on the agenda is our budget work session. So Sharon, do you want to lead it off or do you want to?
I'll get
Pass
it started
Stacey.
and then I'll pass it to Stacey.
Okay.
Today we're going to present to the board some very preliminary information that we're still working through a lot of the data as it becomes available from the state and the federal government regarding how that will impact our budget, expenses, revenues, and of course our expenditure limit, which we did just get the final numbers from the commission late last week. So just to start with the first slide as a reminder of our, you have to click. Yep. As a reminder, maybe.
I don't know, man. This clicker is becoming an issue.
It never works.
We'll get back.
Into the space somewhere. There we go. Okay. So budget work session timeline. We are here April, early budget projections, and then through April, and it's going to be quite the month of department work sessions and elected official work sessions. We got those all lined up. Some of them will be an hour, some of them will be half an hour, so depending on the complexity of their budget. Then mid-May, final work session before tentative budget adoption. That's when we will have more firm numbers that we talk about today. We firm them up throughout the month of April, and mid-May come back with that budget proposal for the board. And the board can make additional changes before the tentative budget in June. Once the tentative is passed, it cannot be increased. It can be decreased, but not increased. And then final adoption in July, and then the property tax rate adoption in August, according to statute.
So you said, I'm sorry, in May. So we'll vote in the tentative budget at like mid-June, early June?
It's June 11th, I believe, is the tentative.
Hopefully the legislature will be done by then so we could lock up the numbers.
Yeah.
There's always the risk that they go past July.
That's what we always
It's
hope for.
happened several times.
Sorry, Laura, you had a correction on the June 10th?
It is June 10th.
Okay. For the 10th.
June 10th.
Sharon, you mentioned property tax rate in August.
Yes.
What did you mean by that?
So that's when we do our tax rate adoptions, a special meeting where we go through all the special districts as well as the county budget and do the tax rate adoption as we've done
For next year.
For next year.
I know that that's always been done in the past. I think it is much wiser to do the property tax rate as soon as possible, since that date in August is you can't go after this. What was the first Monday in August? Let's just say it's the first
We need to do it
Yeah.
before we adopt the budget on July 1st. We need to know what that number is
So,
because that's key to.
So there's a certain statutory timeframes that we need to plot out for the public notice and the truth in taxation meeting, hearings and everything
Right.
like that. So once we know what that looks like, perhaps we can come back and have that discussion. I'll have that discussion with the clerk to see if a revised timeline for that is possible to do in July. It's just kind of a public notice and hearings and things. I want to make sure I have a calendar.
So the tax kicks in October, right? Is that when it goes into effect? No, January?
Starts in January, but we don't actually bill until September.
Of next year?
September 2025, they send out the bills.
Right.
No, they I know they sent out the bill in September, but the first I always pay my property tax in October.
And you can, but yeah, you get your tax bill for 2025 in September. It becomes, the first half becomes delinquent November 1st, or you can pay the full year by December 31st. But the actual liability by statute is on January 1st.
Oh, sorry. I should have asked her. Thank you,
I don't
Madam
want to.
Treasurer. I apologize.
Kathy Trewick.
Yeah.
It is
Our
me.
Treasurer for how long?
Oh, 12 years now, but I've been here for 30, it'll be 33 in May.
And how
So-
many more, Kathy?
Had 1,368 days.
That's kind of.
Not that I'm counting, but yeah.
So I'm just trying, what we're trying to get at, I think to Mr. Crosby's point is, the budget that we're going to implement on July 1st has to take into account the updated property tax rate.
Right.
Right. So it would be wise to know what we are going to decide on setting that rate
And
at.
I can tell you.
But you do have to, by statute, have your tax rate, your budget, everything in place. The thing that occurs on August 4th, I believe,
Yeah, that's just the formal.
that's where you guys actually go
Yeah.
through and approve all the tax rates.
So not
that you-
everybody will have their taxes.
Right.
Like the special districts.
School districts, everybody, because when you finally do that, that's when I can submit, combine all those numbers and submit them to the printer to actually get tax bills made. So it is possible that, say, in August, you have a rate, you set it, everything is great, and one of the special districts or city comes back and says, oops, we forgot we have a library, or oops, we didn't take into account something. They can, by special meeting, you can go back and amend that, but the big squish is in the middle where I have to submit that to get the tax bills in the mail. But all of the stuff up to the August meeting is already done by July 1st, as far as,
Yep.
what you guys operate with.
Ms. Gomez.
This is going to be a very unusual year because you've got federal cuts, you got state cuts. And so to figure out what we're going to do, if we get cut a lot, whether it comes about roads or whatever,
Right.
we're going to have to look at, I know you guys want to go back on that 2.2% property tax, but if we're going to be cut everywhere, we're going to have to really look on what that means.
That means we have to do the magic cut. I mean, I've been down that road before. It's not fun, but it's got to get done. If we don't have the funding in the budget and we're not going to hit the taxpayers, which I do not want to do.
But you want to go back on that.
Well, yeah, I think, again, when inflation hits, inflation and other cost of living increases are automatically imposed on the public, but they don't seem to be automatically imposed on government. Government seems to just raise taxes to deal with it, right? They don't bear the same burden as the tax-paying public. So my philosophy is that if you allow the economy to do its thing, government should live within the means just like the people live with the means. So just because inflation goes up and you and I have less disposable income as private citizens doesn't mean, that we can immediately go out and go to our boss and say, hey, I want a 5% pay raise now. Give me a 5% pay raise.
So my question is then that if you then went and did another cut and cut what we have to operate on when we've already got federal cuts and state cuts, then that's going to be hot to see what we can have in roads, which is already we're at a different point now.
I got you. That's part of the fight we're all going to get in is the how we're going to break up this funding revenue that we have, both with general fund revenue and grants and everything else. Mr. Crosby.
Yes, sir. I believe that the best way to prepare the department heads for what money they are likely to have or not have is to tell them what the rate is going to be. And I'm going to tell you what the rate's going to be, or what I believe it's going to be. 2.6747 is what I believe the rate should be. That was the 2021 rate, and it is didn't go up until last year, I think.
I think it was last year.
Yeah, somebody finally caved in and raised the property tax rate. So I think that is the best way to be fair to everyone, especially our beloved department heads. If we tell them how much money they're going to have.
And we do get into that.
Yeah. The other side of the equation is, again, having done this before, cutting spending, I learned this valuable lesson. The first year we did budget cuts, we let the departments all just decide on where to cut, and they created a sort of revenge system where they cut the most painful things to draw the most attention. So we may have to be very proactive with the departments to look where we want to reduce spending and whatnot. And the challenge is, if you can do it without eliminating people, that's great. But if we lose grant revenue, which and funds, we're going to have to just those people that were hired on grants, like I think we talked about already. Sorry, that was a condition of your employment. If the grant goes away, we're not going to just switch you over to the general fund to cover your salary. You're sorry, you're gone. And then there may be needs to reduce, depending on where we're at budget-wise, other positions, or eliminate positions that are unfilled, and not put a hiring freeze in and not fill any positions at all until we can reel the budget back. Or if we have to, worst comes to worst, we just let people go.
It will be a matter of prioritization.
That's correct.
So-
That's the challenge.
Um,
Thank you, Madam Treasurer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of the expenditure limit, this is in Arizona, the aggregate expenditure limit, the AEL, is a constitutional amendment, and it restricts how much local revenue cities or counties and cities and towns can spend each fiscal year. So this is calculated by the Economic Estimates Commission. Our population, that estimate increased. This includes people who cross in and out of the country through the POE. So we believe that's where the increase mostly factored in versus actual population increase within the county.
So they count in people who go to school in Douglas, which is like half of the high school.
Mhm. And then our GDP implicit price deflator. So it went up this year. Our expenditure limit went up to 83.9 million.
Do you know what it was from?
Yeah, that's in another slide.
I have another question.
Looks like you're-
No, right off the top of your head.
I'm sorry, what's that?
When will Ms. Trawick and her investment advisor, or whatever his title might be before us again?
April 14th.
April 14th. Thank you. Come
That's
right.
coming right up.
Coming right up.
A week today.
It changed.
That's,
You're good.
okay.
It changed.
Looking
for the, I know it's I don't know, I've been playing. But anyway, well, okay, so the expenditure limit qualifies, local revenues and expenses, anything that comes from local taxes or sales tax or property tax. And if the revenue came from federal or state grants, those expenses do not count in the
Right.
expenditure limit, nor does debt service. So for some reason on the page, the graph didn't print, but it's right there. This is how the expenditure limit has changed over the years. We did see a drop in FY 22-23. Some of that we believe was because of COVID and closure of the port of entry factored into the calculation. And then with inflation, it's just risen. That calculation has risen over the past 3 years.
So, I'm sorry, can you go back to that graph? Can you tell me what the total in 24-25 was? 8 point, would you say 1? 2 or?
Yeah,
I think it was 8.1.
83.
Or yeah,
81. 81.3.
Yeah, something close like that. I actually tried to pull that up right before we walked in. Didn't want to open.
All right.
The
And
wild card, which we have talked about, but we obviously have not exhausted, is the jail tax election coming up, whether it passes or not, and the effect on the expenditure limit and so on.
you are hitting all my slides early.
All right.
You must have read ahead.
You read ahead. Current year expenses, most departments are projected to be under budget just slightly. Everybody's pretty much running on pace for where their expenses should be at this point in the year within their budget. Elections is projected to be over budget mainly due to overtime costs from the election.
Yeah.
And we got 2 of them, so.
Yeah.
He's talking about this year.
This year.
This
the
year.
current year.
Yeah.
So,
And they will be likely next year too,
Yeah.
because of what's going on. And we are going to still have that discussion about trying to go to precinct voting as much as possible. I don't know if you
Mr.
still,
Funk is listening.
Yeah, and that, yeah. I
But,
keep thinking of the General McAuliffe in Boston when the German general wanted him to surrender. And McAuliffe responded with one word, nuts. That was the word he used. So I'm half tempted to send him a letter saying, thank you, Mr. Secretary of State. I received your letter. Here's our reply, nuts. And say, we don't care what you think. Actually, sue us, which is what he's going to do anyways, because he uses the Attorney General as this little
Yeah.
pit bull on a leash to come after us and everything else. But I'm not intimidated by him. And I think we should start pushing back really hard on him to within the limit of
I
the
think
law.
we should meet him.
And I think we should start recovering some of our costs by suing them for our legal fees and whatnot. But that's another discussion for another day. Getting off agenda here. So, but yeah, I think we're going to see, to Joe's point, elections is going to see an increase because we got to buy 2 machines. We've got to staff it up because we got the special election for Mr. Grijalva's vacancy.
Right.
We want to beef up for the 2026 election. We got to consider whether we're going to go to precinct voting, hand counts, all that stuff is going to cost extra money. So officers, training,
Mhm.
all of that's going
And for
to.
those people who are like so adamant about the machines, there's got to be 2 machines. I don't know how anyone.
No, I
Right,
agree.
agree, right?
But again, the old Ronald Reagan trust but verify, right? So you get the machines, you use the machines, and then and this is just me.
Yeah.
25% hand count the first election cycle to validate it, and then we can increase that eventually to 100% as we get the system hammered out, as we learn the process to do hand counting votes. We got to get that hammered out, though.
You got to look at the ARS and see what the ARS say, because what they're going to, the wording is going to be counties may use machines.
May.
That's what
No, I
it's-
got you.
that's
What I'm
when
getting
you
at-
start getting into how much of a percentage of a hand count you're going to do, that's when you're going to run into.
Yeah, like I said, we'll be suing. We'll get sued. We're going to sue them. It's going to be lawyers galore because as we're seeing in Washington right now, they're rebaselining the system. So we've got to redo that here. And counties run elections.
I'm going to turn it over to Stacy to talk about what we project some expenses for the next fiscal year, which is what this budget is about.
So for FY26, the increases we are already expecting, our employer health contribution rates are going to go up. We will have more firm numbers on that once open enrollment is closed so that we know where our individuals have signed up.
And that's
we can
going on
accurate-
now, right?
Yes, that is going on right now. Mhm.
I got to go talk to our HR lady about personal, what I got to convert. So she says I get, like, when I retire, I get a special event. I got to go, I can get
Yeah, yes,
I got to go talk to her about
Yes.
that because that's coming up. I got to start
Is
planning.
this the slide that we're supposed to be looking at?
yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
I have a question
Yes,
about what did we ever do about the service to employees from CCOM who are coming over here and now they want us to go to service, but they want us to pay service to rates. I mean,
So
we decided.
That's an agreement that hasn't come before the board yet. I'm still working through it with City of
Okay.
Sierra Vista. There's some changes that I've requested.
Because that's going to be, if it was to go as they would like, that would be a huge increase on us, right? To pay
We'll
Sierra Vista's rates.
Talk about that too.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, we'll get there, yes. So I have received all the funding requests for fiscal year 26 from all the departments. If all of those funding requests were approved, that would be an increase to the general fund of $2.27 million. Of course, you guys will go through and work through those funding requests and you guys can prioritize as you see fit. CCOM's early projected budget is an increase of $135,000 for our side of it. Okay, so they're
So
over.
that's just for the current county employees that are over there?
And increased in expenses in general for CCOM. So their overall budget is increasing. However, the funding cost model that we use with City of Sierra Vista is special assessments and our portion divided, right? So then they take the difference between the budget they're requesting and our payment to them, and we split that 50-50. So that's that increase right there.
Is the, what, 35?
Mhm.
And we'll have a special CCOM work session on their budget May 4th.
14th?
No, it's early.
Oh,
First
is it?
of May.
Right.
I really need to get over there
Yeah.
and talk to that The gal, I keep forgetting her name. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Tammy Jo?
Tammy Jo.
Yeah.
Tammy, I keep mixing her up with Terry Jo.
I know.
Oh,
There's
right.
a lot of,
And then we got a Watkins and a Wilkins.
yeah.
Yes,
Two
yes.
Watkinses.
Yeah, so I don't know when you could, I guess I'll find a spot on the calendar where I can sneak over there and just like
Mhm.
spend an hour over there.
So, and with that loan employee agreement, how that works is the city is taking out of their contribution the cost for their employees. We don't pay for their employees.
Mhm.
The city's paying for their employees. They're just letting us use them in CCOM.
So, but yeah, but then they were supposed to come over to our,
So
so we were going to
certain,
pay for them.
those employees are now county employees. So yes, that was an increase.
And now
And
some of
where
them
that
decided
content-
they wanted to go back or stay with the Sierra Vista, but be on our payroll.
No.
Instead
No,
of
they're not on
No.
our payroll.
Mm-mm.
They're
Well,
not.
They went back to the city and they're still on the city's payroll,
you know, leaving,
but they're working in the building.
Yeah.
working in the building.
Mr. Cross.
But we
I
don't,
have
we
a
don't know.
big elephant in the room,
Sure.
which is the disproportionate number of inmates in the county jail that are from Sierra Vista. So when it comes to slicing the pie between the city of Sierra Vista and the county, there's a whole bunch of stuff to look at.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Not easy.
Mhm.
we talked about that before. Yeah, I know.
So, a further increase that we have this year is the mosquito monitoring contract over in health. That was a pre-negotiated increase over, I think it's 5 years. So this is one of the last
With-
increases
with
we're
who?
seeing. This is Arboviral is the company. They do mosquito monitoring, so West Nile virus sampling.
Yeah, they're the
that
guys
kind
got
of
the little things nailed to the trees,
Correct.
collects mosquitoes,
Yeah.
and they analyze them.
Yep. So that's it.
4,500.
Yeah. So the last one is our state shift costs are increasing by 3.4 million from our budget. So this graph here shows how volatile the Altix
But
payment has
Altex, again, is just mainly aging,
been. Long-term care contribution.
long-term care, yeah.
Yes. So that assessed amount to us has been volatile over the years. Very wise leadership last year decided not to drop our budget allocation for that amount,
Mhm.
expecting that it would go back up. It has. So the only budget increase we have to increase for Altix is that 3.4 million, even though the assessed increase is more like 6.5 million. So our PSPRS unfunded liability slide is brought to you by CSA. I wanted to highlight that even though our change, we're going up, we're making extra payments. This continues to be a moving target for us. Right now, I would say we should continue with our plan of making extra payments. Yes. Yes, sir.
And it's, sorry, one point to make is that the counties, there are 11 or so counties that did do a bond for their PSPRS, and those are the ones that are showing the 90 to 100, over 100% funded is because they went to a bond.
Mhm.
And
They
so
went to
any
get-
changes.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Are
Not-
due.
They traded one kind for another.
Any
Do you
changes are
have
due to-
Any similar figures for court?
I think we have a corp one, but not an EORP one. Yes, I can get that to you, sir.
Because that's going to be in the range of, well, let's just see what it used to be.
Mhm.
So any changes in the plan have been due to additional payments, not necessarily plan performance.
So personnel expenses, and these are very early numbers here. And based on comments that you guys have made, we prepared two different sets of data here. If we were to do a cost of living adjustment on general fund individuals only at 1%, we could expect that to be around the cost of $285,000. And this is just for salaries and wages. We don't have the final numbers for health benefits yet. That'll come after open enrollment. And then I
Does
get
that factor in those that are doing the 401k and the match? Does that factor into the salary?
No.
So that's extra.
The COLA at 2% looks like $570,000.
Right.
Market compensation plan, which is traditionally what we have been doing. Right now, our compensation in the general fund is sitting somewhere at about 97% of fiscal year 25's market figures. No, it's fine. I actually changed it this morning. Sorry. Yeah, I realized I had a little typo in there. So we don't have the market plan or market study yet for this year. HR just received the numbers last week. And they're still working through that during open enrollment as well. So we should get that from them mid-May. So we can kind of shore up these numbers a little more. So what I did was I applied a 3% adjustment for inflation to the market numbers from last year to give you guys some general guidelines or general ballparks on if you guys chose to go with a market compensation plan at 95, 96, and 97% of the market. We would be looking at between 183,000 to 788,000. Last year we had selected 94% of market. However, with where we're at right now, even with the adjustment for inflation, that would be a negative number. So I went 95, 96, 97.
Is there any way to get an evaluation of what I believe is the impact of the border now being relatively, I'm saying secure, because I just saw again, it's like only 7,000 border crossings versus 97,000 last month, right? So that was nationwide.
Mhm.
I'm assuming that's a much lower number here. So our healthcare system is less impacted, our sheriff's department is less impacted, there's all these services that should be seeing a decrease
Indigent defense.
in demand. Yeah, going down. Is there somebody looking at that so we can try to find savings there by reducing, some of the impact from that? Well, that may be a touchy
Early,
subject.
yeah.
but-
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little early. I mean, while that impact goes down, others go up. So,
Like what would go up?
well, I'm just thinking of the departments that report to the board, like indigent defense. While that has gone down, mental health issues have gone up.
If we're dealing with less issues from the border,
Felonies.
right? Less human smuggling, so the guys that are in the jail for running
human
people
smuggling, yeah.
through,
Mhm.
there's fewer of those guys. There's fewer, people getting into the healthcare system, getting free stuff. So, I mean, it's got to be
And
saving somewhere.
too, on how much they caught, how many they actually caught, or how versus how many kind of got away.
Well,
from
I got you, but I mean, talking to everybody so far, that it is a significant decrease and the resources needed now, which for once, the federal government is doing its job,
Right.
right, to a degree. So therefore, the impact to local law enforcement and healthcare and everything else should go down. Should. Mr. Crosby.
To digress back to PSPRS and court, the 20, well, we got this current figure of about 29.4.
Yeah, I
Yes,
thought it was like 40, so that the total pension liability is for.
But wait, there's court, which was 6.7 in 23. So that combined total is 36.1. And therefore, if, for instance, Sierra Vista also has a 36 to $40 million pension liability issue, then my constituents
Or on the hook
are
for 80 million.
about 80.
Yeah.
There you go. So it isn't just about providing services. If we're going to have prosperity for people that live here already and a reason for people to move here, build a house and live here, they gotta not be under the impression that, oh man, Sierra Vista's in the hole for 80 million. I don't think I'll merge into the county. I don't think I'll merge those two.
Yeah.
All right, so this is actually the same information from the budget kickoff slide. When it comes to state budget impact, they are still looking at a 935 million general fund balance for the state, which excludes the traditional ongoing one-time funding items, leaving a 50 million ending balance buffer. The change to this that could be coming down the pipeline, and I know we discussed this before, was the individual allocations of those excess funds to the different senators. They are actually tossing back and forth a different method right now. Instead of doing that, they're actually talking about pooling resources, not giving it out to the individuals, but kind of blocking it
Trying to
off
figure
the
out how to spend
caucus.
it. They're still trying to
Yeah,
figure
yeah.
The state's PSP.
That's what they should do.
Millions of dollars extra.
That's
For the
right.
county.
Yeah.
In the counties, better yet.
When you're going to hear those counties that borrowed money screaming.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like the ability to fairly allocate that is way beyond, I think, a lot of people's scopes. But the end state is that there is still 1.6 billion in the state's rainy day fund. I know that there is still ongoing investigation and push into the governor's budget. So I feel like
About
this.
the 300 million?
Yes, yes. So I expect as they finish that out, that there may be some changes.
Oh, I found it. No,
I didn't find it this morning.
yeah.
Yes. So one of the slides we wanted to give you guys here is the potential budget impact of the dissolution of the jail district. Should you guys make that decision, we are looking at a budget for the jail district as the MOE has been calculated because the expenditure limit and the GDP implicit price deflator was launched. So the MOE, maintenance of effort budget for this year is 6.7 million. Expenses requested by the jail itself above that budget are 1.4 million.
So what is that 1.4 million? I thought it was
It
like
just-
300 and something K. No,
It-
the
Right now,
expense
this is
above
under-
MOE is coming out of the jail district tax. That's 1.4 million coming out of the jail district tax, right?
Yes, that is what they're requesting.
But I
this year
thought it
in
was
the
like
budget.
300 and something K, which was the salary for the project manager plus.
That's current. This is future.
This is future.
This is if
This
they
is
got
next
it.
year.
So
Yes. So this is
they're asking for basically 1.1 million more
4
correct.
million?
For
Oh, I
what?
see what you mean, 1 million.
For what?
So part of that includes the staffing that was approved for the Sierra Vista juvenile area. Yes. So
That building
that's
switch.
that's part of it. Right. So this is
600,000.
what's and increases to operational costs
Right.
in jail medical and jail mental health. There are a few other things that are in there.
We're going to review that
Right.
very closely.
And
Yes.
there is a work session.
There, yeah, I was gonna say, there's a work session for that. So the full budget appropriation that they're requesting is 8.1 million. And if we dissolve the jail district, that would get moved back into the general fund. Those expenditures
But don't get
would,
confused with dissolving the district for not building the jail.
Right.
I'm sure everybody understands.
right,
We can still do a capital bond or some sort of
Some sort.
bond mechanism to fund building a jail
Right.
and just keep it on the general fund and
Yeah.
not have a special district.
Right.
right.
And this is jail operations. This is to maintain the operations within our current jail is the
Right.
funding we're talking about that would then.
Well, that's the way I would like to see it, to be honest, is it all falls under the sheriff's department.
Yep. So that full 8.1 million would become part of our expenditure limit, whereas we right now reap some, not immunity, but some deductions because of the way
Yeah,
that.
which is why everybody does special districts to operate
Right.
so they can
Right.
raise taxes,
Yeah.
which again is why I hate special districts.
So
Yes.
next year, we don't have the jail tax. It's 8.1 million for just the sheriff's budget. Oh, no, just the jail.
Jail's budget,
Just the
yes,
jail.
correct.
And then just approximately remind me what the sheriff's budget is? Like, is it 6?
I'd have to get back to you on that. I don't have that memorized.
Okay. Besides the jail.
Yeah. Yeah.
And tomorrow we have, I think it's tomorrow, we have the financial position of the sheriff's office that we can probably get back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just kind of want to
Mhm.
run that through my head
Mhm.
before tomorrow.
Yep.
Okay.
So, and this figure here does not include any funding requests that they have submitted for this next fiscal year, and those totaled up are 291,000. So that would be an additional increase if those were approved.
Of the ones that you think that they would want to.
The ones that, the ones they have submitted
Oh,
for
these
for
are the
your
ones
approval.
that they, okay,
Yeah.
for approval for next year,
Yes, correct.
new funding.
Yes. So the next thing I would like to talk about is our revenue blend for the general fund. Right now, we lean fairly heavily on property taxes at 45% of our expected income. Our sales tax is at 39%, and our other income, miscellaneous revenues, fees, fines, those kind of things, is at 16%. Yes, sir.
Does that count grants?
No, sir. This is general fund.
These are the revenue generating mechanisms.
Thank you.
Next slide. Thank you. So we have though we have a performing revenue system, we have a slow growing revenue system here in Cochise County. Our revenues have grown at a slower rate than other counties, especially our compatriots are similar counties. We are sitting at 37% growth rate versus an average of 47% growth rate. Do you have them?
That's
No,
high.
when we compare to ourselves, we are always right on trend going upwards, but when we look at it statewide, we are moving slower in our revenue generation, primarily because our population remains flat.
Stagnant.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, what about the an inflation adjustment to our growth? This county, we compare Cochise County over the last several years and factoring inflation. Are we level?
No.
No. Okay, how far down are we? I wonder.
We're 10, 10%. This is with numbers in there.
10%.
Yeah, yep.
Okay, and so what I was looking for is a graph similar to this, but with only Cochise County for 5 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
you get to that later, don't you?
Okay,
Yeah.
ahead of the
Yes, yeah.
invitation.
Yeah.
Always jumping ahead.
Yeah, no. Yes. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is our county sales tax mix. So we rely heavily on retail here. Oh,
no,
gosh.
there.
Oh, they moved over there. Yeah, up here it has a little bit better.
Yeah.
The printer likes to move things apparently. So you see our repair and renovation and our jet fuel tax are just very tiny slices in there. Online sales.
Jet fuel's zero.
It is zero, yes. So
That's
yeah.
We need
That's the
to
answer.
bring that BDI back.
okay. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
As far as sales tax,
Mhm.
if we took half a cent sales tax out of that from the jail tax, then what would it look like?
This does not factor in the jail tax.
Oh,
That is
okay.
actually separate.
Yeah.
Good,
Mhm.
good thing.
Yes.
So we only get 11% from online sales?
Mhm.
Come on, I buy 90% of what I
That's
buy
what most
online.
people do.
How could that be? I'm almost always online.
Is that,
These are based on the February numbers. So
so,
That's hard to believe.
but
It's
is
only
there some states that looked at that and then
realize that
changed it,
realized
realized
things
how
were
much
not-
they were losing on online sales?
Yeah, we changed that in the state 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Where
we've already
anybody
got-
with a nexus,
Yeah.
as they call it, to Arizona has to charge sales.
Mhm.
I think they're also trying to do something retroactive or not.
No.
Where they weren't trying they weren't trying to collect back taxes on from eBay or somebody.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know PayPal was trying to do something moving forward, but not backwards. Yeah.
Because I know like in Douglas, most of the people do online because there's nothing to
I
buy.
can't believe it's only 11%. That doesn't sound right to me.
I'll show you the data later if you like.
I'm not doubting the data. Well, the old garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
So maybe what's inputting it is not accurate. There's no way it's only 11%. I find that hard to believe.
Is it the honor system?
We could always reach out to
Department of Revenue.
Yeah,
Make
Department
sure
of Revenue and
that's
see
the
what
calculate.
they're,
Send it down to us.
I just don't buy that number. I
Yeah.
don't, it should be much higher than that.
especially with the
At least like
Yeah.
30% or something.
I mean, I'm serious. I
I
don't.
can't believe one out of 10.
No way, because, I mean, I'm probably the one dinosaur who hates Bezos so much that I don't use Amazon. But I'm the only one because my sister, my dad gets 3 Amazon boxes a day for
Goodness
everything.
gracious.
So there's just no way.
I just can't, I don't know. That's kind of a weird number. I don't know how we could look into that and find out what the story is, but I don't buy that 11%. I really don't.
We could contact the Department of Revenue, absolutely. That's not a problem.
What is,
We-
yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay.
Communications would be,
I was just going to ask that. Go ahead.
I believe that's telephones.
That's
No.
that's like 911 and
No. No, I don't think so.
is that not the tax we pay on cell phones for 911 service and everything else, the fees that come in from that?
No, that would be sales tax. But we're talking
Just sales
tax. So, no, I don't believe it would be 911. I think it's just communication sales, like cell phone sales, radios. things
Transit
like that.
lodging is taxation without representation.
So the restaurants and bars,
Mhm.
why is that broken out separate from retail? It's just
Because it's higher.
It's higher?
You bet. It's like
Mhm.
12% or something.
Mhm.
Is it really?
Mhm.
Yeah, on the tax tables, it's a different rate.
So is transient lodging, it's very high.
Yep.
It might be the highest.
Well, so then, like if Douglas has a bed tax, right?
Right.
Mhm.
And then the county gets a percentage of that.
Mhm.
We have-
We have our, we have
Yeah,
our,
We have our own
rate on there.
So where do we get that from? Any hotel that's not within a city?
it's no, any cities and in the county.
So you get something,
Countywide.
you get a percentage of
We have a
bed
half
tax.
cent. Mhm.
Okay.
So it all calculates out according to.
So if Douglas decides, which they want to get rid of the bed tax, then,
That's their business.
but
Yeah.
then we don't get anything from that either.
No, we still have our half cent. It's a separate.
It's a different line
We
item.
have the Douglas sales tax and then the county sales tax.
Mhm.
Yikes. I mean, that's a lot. It seems.
What does the League of Cities call it? They have a table, and the default thing for the League of Cities is charge all taxes. That's why I call the League of Cities the League of City Taxes. And then it's up to the Board of or the city councils to say, okay, we're going to take that one off, take that one off, take that one off. But the default is charge all taxes.
So even if they get rid of it, we would still have whatever it is on when you check out, you're gonna have a county tax
Mhm.
on your, okay. So the same thing with amusement, right? Because I know that they got rid of their amusement tax in Douglas
Mhm.
for 3 years,
Mhm.
but we still get
Mhm.
a tax on if somebody wants to have like a fair.
Right, so the county has a half cent sales tax, and then the Department of Revenue takes that half cent and breaks it out into all these different industry or
Okay.
categories and appropriates a certain rate to each of those different categories, and it's,
Uh,
this is what we
You
get.
seen the commodity codes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
got it.
All right. So our assessed valuations came in from the assessor. Our total overall assessed valuations for FY26 are $1.16 billion. Our FY25 valuations comprise 95.7. Our new construction is at 2.3%, and property improvements and increases to value are at 2%. Mhm. Tax rate implications. So based on commentary from the board, we prepared two different tallies here showing at our current rate what the levy will be for this next year in year 0, and at the reduced rate back to the FY24 rate, what our levy would be, and lost revenue potential compounded over several years if the rate is reduced and kept at that lower rate
So it's only 622K?
this year.
And then it goes up to
Dude.
1.2.
Should the assessments continue to increase at a consistent rate, this is just a projection of that.
Out of 97 or 83 million, right?
It's not a big hit.
No.
No, I thought it would be much more.
Yeah, I did too.
I really
Well,
did. I thought it'd be
locked
like
in.
It is when you consider over the course of time.
Yeah, over the course of time with, I gave it a 4% average valuation growth. That's kind of factored over 5 years, the last 5 years historical
I
data.
don't care about that. That's the only number I care about right there.
It's the first one?
Yeah, it's the one that's up.
Because things could change, you could do things differently, is what I'm saying, down in the next.
We need to expand the tax base. That's how you make up the revenue in the following years. You get the tax.
That is a lot more than I thought. I really thought we'd be looking at 2 or 3 million.
Not right.
22,000.
Yeah,
And that's just based on,
that's this year's numbers.
right.
Mhm.
So the way you would do that, you're saying it's like, if we could do something in planning and zoning where we get, it just is more, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
We got to expand the tax base.
Yeah,
We got to grow the economy,
Yeah.
right? You grow the
Yeah.
economy, you make up for that in no time.
In no
Yep.
time.
That's
And-
peanuts.
Yeah,
That
and
is
that's,
peanuts.
that's kind of my point in showing you guys the how heavily we lean on property tax, how our revenues have been slow growing,
And
and then the implications of this is that, yes, we have to increase our economic
if
base.
I recall, the residential assessment ratio is 10%. It's 15 for commercial businesses, right? I think it's 15. So you bring in more businesses that
You make more money.
make
off
way more money.
business. Yeah.
So we got to figure out how to encourage.
That's something.
I know we got something going. We got to,
Okay.
but that is the key. So we have to quit relying on the residential
Yeah.
property taxes
Okay, gotcha.
to do this. Mr.
Just to
Clyde.
explore. fixture, what type of businesses do you have in mind that require if any, an increased population to buy widgets or whatever they produce and sell?
Well, we could bring in, like in Benson, for example, they're looking at a data center. They're looking at an aluminum recycling facility. We can expand. Johnson Mine is going to expand. They want to expand mining operations at Johnson Road. And Wilcox and maybe down further south on 191, we're looking at a cattle processing facility, stockyard,
And we're looking at a feedlot.
feedlot.
Freedom McNeil, which
Yep.
is really close to happening. And that's really exciting because then also, if we can do the processing, we can import the cattle from
And then-
Mexico, process it
And then
here.
the port with a transfer station, a port of entry with a transfer station at Wilcox with a rail line.
Yeah.
All that's big thinking, because like I said, you aim high, and even if you miss the mark, you still do 10 times better than if you did nothing at all. So, thank you, probably. Rosny chart.
Cut and paste, thank you, from a long time ago. This
Yeah.
is why I wanted to zero out the collection rate for the flood control district to reduce property taxes. And we do have control over that. The last time I looked, the flood control district was sitting on $9 million. And so they could just use that $9 million and we will collect zero. That is what I would like to do.
I got you, but Kathleen and I need to look at, and we'll talk to you about it, looking at using that money to do recharge projects
Yeah.
instead. That's what I want to start doing with that money. Instead of concrete lining washes,
Okay, just
That
don't,
does-
just don't collect anymore, that's all. Well, wait, I'm not soliciting a vote.
I'm not either, but I'm just saying we need to explore.
Because you're not going to be able to get people to come here when you don't have roads that they can use, and every
And
time
walk.
they go on the road, they get a flat tire. It costs them $150. So that's something we really have.
Right, but I think, well, back to the flood control, I think doing projects that do recharge
Yeah.
and flood control, you can kill two birds with one stone, right? But I mean, especially out where I live, and I know this includes, we're struggling with the AMA out there. Both AMAs, you got the Douglas AMA and you got the Wilcox AMA. Both of those, part of the plan to get out from under the AMA is to do recharge,
Yeah.
to improve.
That's,
Whose plan is that? We're just exploring.
right.
No, we're just exploring, but I'm part of the way to get out from the AMA is to show net yield, closing that gap from charge.
Not gonna happen.
I got you. You can't
You gotta
ignore it.
pretend. You got,
Well, it's either slow the bleeding or just let it bleed, right? So yeah, you're still bleeding, but you're not bleeding as much. But if there's a benefit we could do to reduce flooding and improve recharge, and not, I've talked to a lot of ranchers out there, and by the time the water you don't want the water getting to the lake bed. They'll catch it and get it back into the aquifer before, if it gets to the lake bed, it's like concrete. It just evaporates, right? So all these flood control issues out there, we need to be trying to find a way to borehole it for perking back down into the aquifer.
okay, and do it cheaper than what we've seen before, concrete lined at every.
Right, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Not,
Okay.
there's ways of doing swales and catches and, with these little, 1 to 2, what is it, 20, 18, what's the limit? It's like 18 inches is all we're allowed to have.
I'm not sure. For a grade control structure?
No,
The
for
berm?
to slow wash flow, right? You're allowed to put like a 12 to 18 inch little,
Grade control structure, because it's not a dam.
it's not a dam. Yeah, that's correct. It's just and then you borehole, you drill, and then that water sits there, and then before it evaporates, it's allowed to get into the ground fast and it evaporates. But that's the kind of stuff where you kill two birds with one stone. You're doing flood control and you're doing recharge at the same time.
Well, if you get a chance, perhaps you could look in between the mall parking lot and my street and look what's there.
I know.
Because it is a very good example, I believe, of pretty much what you're talking about
Right.
with the recharge basins or whatever they're called.
And
And it looks cheap.
it looks cheap to me too.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. If we're going to look, let's use this stuff for what it's supposed to be, to control flooding, but at the same time, improve recharge.
Just to explore what we have heard so far from Ms. Watkins is that she is hesitant to use her license to build something that isn't magnificent. So we got to figure out a way to build something that's less than magnificent for roads and for
Yeah.
such things.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree too.
We're having that discussion, and Joe's been working that
Mhm.
with the public works guy, with Jason and her to try to figure out, I call it the B grade road system. Instead of grade A roads, we can go with grade B roads,
Not magnificent.
not magnificent.
So in the next couple of slides, I'd like to kind of go over our 5-year history on a number of our different forms of income, forms of revenue. So I think the main takeaway from probably all these next slides here.
What is that? On my chart?
I have no idea.
Printed so.
Yeah, I don't know what the printer did.
Drastic something.
I know.
Something bad happened.
I don't know what the printer did, sorry.
Printer did something really wrong.
Yes.
That's the correct thing.
That is the information.
So what I think it is where you end at the current month, right?
Yeah.
Is what that red line is.
Yeah.
The printer just decided, since there wasn't any data beyond that month, that we will take it to zero and crash.
Scare everyone.
Yeah. So that's what
So our 5-year history on county sales tax, you can see we kind of perform within our own little window. And that kind of harks back to what Ms. Gilman was saying earlier, that in comparison to other counties, we're performing slowly, but in comparison to ourselves, we're performing right on par. Right now, as of February, our budget was set at 8.89 million, and we are at 82.1% collected of the budget for the sales tax. So we're performing ahead or early, if you would like. Our proration
for last year.
Yes. Our proration versus our 5-year totals is setting us out at about $10 million.
What happened in 2021 that you guys went?
COVID.
Oh, that was COVID.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is a month-by-month breakdown. The data runs through for this year through February on all these slides. It's the dark blue. Supervisor Crosby, is this more like what you were asking about earlier?
Yeah.
I think I misunderstood your question earlier.
Yeah,
That's
chart
like,
comparing us to ourselves.
yes, okay.
So our sales tax goes down in November and December.
So the collection and the allocation are 1 month off. So when January and February are high, those are November and December.
Oh, okay. So that explains the Christmas bump.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at. I was like, man, December looks low. It should be higher. But okay, so
November.
February is actually December.
Correct.
Right.
All right, so that's
Yeah.
in line with what I
Yeah.
anticipated. Okay.
Our state shared sales tax, again, this is very, very on par for us. Our budget was set at 16 million. We're at 84% collected of that. Our proration shows us to projected to hit 20 million at the
So
end of
this
the
is-
year.
Terminology here, state shared revenue, where we get an apportionment based on population.
The allocation is, I'll have to bring you it's like a big slide. I'll have to bring you the slide to show you what the allocation breakdown is. And
Is that different from
But it's basically-
PERC or is it included?
no,
No,
it's
it's
separate. Mhm.
This is when the state
Sales tax.
gets their 5.6%,
Mhm.
they do a revenue share back, a portion of that goes back to cities and counties
Mhm.
based on population.
Right, and there's one
Is there
other
something
factor.
else in there?
There's another factor in there as well. I'll have, like that, I'll get you that slide, so.
All right.
FEMA,
So that's-
they're so far doing well, our numbers go up
Mhm.
in this scenario. So it's, when the state's doing well, we get a bite of that pie.
Mhm.
And when they're not, we get less.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
it's like a point, another 1%
Mhm.
coming back. So it's instead of us having a half-cent sale or 0.6 or whatever it is, half-cent sales tax, we get 1.5
Mhm.
total because of the state share revenue. Yeah.
I stepped out when we were talking about jail district
Yes.
issues and I made this lovely cut and pasted chart. But what I was wondering is if my colleagues have explored recently the topic of stopping the sales tax as fast as we can versus wait until the election.
No, I think we
I think we
mentioned stop it as soon as
It's
the
done.
judge
Yeah.
makes his decision. And then there's a delay because we got to go to ADOR to notify them.
Mhm.
They have to have time to notify the retailers to adjust their point of sale systems.
Mhm.
And they will establish that date. It's not up to us.
Okay.
We just notify them.
We can notify them by the end of any given month that we want to stop the tax, and then there's a little bit of processing for like, they would like at least, to end it on this particular, at the last day would be that month.
Do my colleagues understand why I bring that up? Because
Well, it's part of the settlement agreement.
okay.
Yeah.
So the settlement agreement says we will,
Got it.
Yeah,
yeah. So as soon as we get the ruling,
from Pontus about his
no,
interview.
no, hopefully he'll get booted with this next hearing. They'll say he doesn't have,
And the hearing is what they,
it's coming up this week, right?
right?
I don't see a
I
date.
thought, wasn't it like this week, Wednesday or Thursday?
I haven't seen a date. And
We'll
I'm
have to
looking.
we'll have to check with Soda. But the first is the motion to intervene, and when that gets done,
Then,
then the judge has to review the settlement and accept the settlement, and then he'll dismiss the lawsuit. And then that's when that happens,
then we go.
then we notify ADOR.
We'll have a resolution for you.
And then we got to come up with a resolution for the
for the-
November,
For the election, which we have so much time to do, right?
May 8th.
May 8th is deadline.
That is what we've been told. If we don't make it by May 8th, we got to bump it out.
Is it worth just meeting and having it so it's there instead of waiting until we?
Yeah, we might as well, yeah, that's a good idea. We might as well let's just have a
One ready to go.
resolution work session for what we would draft, but I think we should wait. Here's the risk you're running. I don't know if we should go executive session.
Right.
This-
Yeah,
this-
I'm kind of getting concerned.
Yeah, this is something we
Yeah.
should, this is something that we have to discuss with Tim, because I don't want to screw up his case by us doing something that impacts the
Well,
case.
whenever we get to where we're supposed to, we need to do it as soon as possible, and
Yeah.
decide, so we have it ready, if that's the way it goes.
Yeah, but you're right, we do need to get on it soon. Because I know we're a little off topic.
I'm just
But
wanting to not discuss.
Ms. Gomez is
litigation.
making good points. though. I mean, it's just that we do need to,
Just a few more
we
slides.
got to be careful we don't do something that screws up Mr. Lasoda.
Yes.
I don't want to torpedo his efforts.
Okay, so
So,
back to the,
Because I
so,
know that's a question.
yes. So HERF is set to perform kind of how we expected budget-wise. We're at 68.8, which is right where we should be for February, performing right on par.
that's just turf, not VLT.
Correct. VLT's next slide, I believe.
Oh, next slide.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Here's VLT. VLT is performing behind for where we would expect to be.
BLT is value.
Vehicle
Vehicle
license.
Vehicle life,
Mhm.
okay.
Mhm. So that is performing behind, but it should come in somewhere near budget-ish. I don't know. We're projecting a little bit low at this point in time. However, based on historical trends, you can see kind of that's been the story.
That's the tax. right?
Mhm. So our next meeting is meetings are April 14th through 17th for elected official work sessions, and then we have departmental work sessions the week after that as well. Next slide, please. Were there any further questions you
I got
guys?
no questions. Well, we could table those for another time as we go through the
Are we
individual.
bumping into our next meeting time?
Yeah,
We
10,
have about 5.
yeah, a couple minutes.
Oh, 2?
Well, you can do
Yeah.
500,000 questions.
No, we'll get to them when we do the breakouts by department. I got a whole bunch. We'll see, but I guess that's it. Any comments from you guys?
Thank you, Stacy.
Thank
You're
you.
Thank you, Stacy. Very good. Appreciate that. Very informative. Unfortunately, too informative slideshow.
No.
I know, we've got a lot of work. We've got a lot of work.
Yes.
All right. The next meeting will be a special, possibly executive session in the executive conference room to discuss job titles, descriptions of the county administrator and deputy county administrator's job description, and their future in Cochise County. I will add that. That was my adding.
I wasn't prepared for that.
So,
That sounds
and their
ominous.
But anyways, with nothing, we will adjourn and we'll see you guys in a minute.